You've reached the end of your path, survivor. Just as Helena Walker once did. It is here that she and her allies faced their final battles. It's up to you to make sure their sacrifices weren't in vain. The alien element that ended our world has willed a titanic adversary into being, to rule in the ruins. Find a way to dethrone that king, and you'll clear the way for me to call down the arts, enabling nature to be reseeded, humanity and Earth's many creatures, and evolution itself can be restored. Helena Walker wanted it so. No. I wanted it. I may be the one who waits, but I'm still Helena too. I remember everything now. The struggles I faced. The losses I felt. And the love that I found. I can see the world through my own eyes again. And survivor, I'm certain of one thing now. You got this, mate.
Rockwell taught us a very important lesson. Element is not good for you. Especially not your skin, not your voice. And overall just makes you a grumpy and irrational person.
I've been transmuted.
What happens when Element gets a hold of an entire planet? Not just any planet. Earth. What happens when it corrupts everything we were once so familiar with? This is Extinction in a nutshell. And if you couldn't tell by the title, I have to complete it in 100 days. And for cinematic purposes, completing it for me is just beating the Gamma King Titan. Something I've never done. Actually, I've never even played on this map before. Ever. So yeah, it'll be kinda interesting. So by all means, please cozy up, grab a blanket, and enjoy my suffering as I try to beat Arc Extinction within 100 days. I bet you'll never guess how I started day one. After crafting myself some basic tools and weapons, I began searching immediately for a good base location. I had absolutely no idea where I was and no clue where I was going, so I figured the best idea was just to hunker down and build a safe place to stay. Unfortunately, this raptor didn't seem to like my plan too much, and even though he failed to stop me, I had a nice little reminder that most raptors don't travel alone. Fortunately, when I returned to my stuff, I saw that the raptor had wandered off. Later that day, I found this wide open grassy area that seemed like a great place to start building my first base, and I wasted no time getting started. Now that I had a safe place I could call home, it was time to look for a creature that could harvest more berries. I tried not to wander too far from the base, but for whatever reason, I just could not find a good level. It was always just something kinda lame, so I decided to just settle on this level 40 iguanodon, which wasn't much honestly, but it would work. I had chosen a pretty good spot to build my base on. It was a nice raised plot of land with just one little ramp area up into it, which I spent most of the rest of the day trying to fortify, and this proved to be a very good idea because a Rex actually attacked me later that day, but couldn't reach me from all the way down there, so all I had to do was just sit there for a long time and shoot it. On day 3, I started to realize that the area I had settled into spawned a lot of Rexes, and I don't even care at this point, just bring them on. The first Rex of the day I beamed in the face with arrows until it passed away, and the other I just decided to kite away, because I didn't feel like doing that again. Because of the seemingly non-stop Rex attacks, I started to notice that water was becoming a problem, so a lot of the day was spent building up an irrigation system to my base. Towards the end of the day, I found a level 90 Argentavis, knocked him out on the back of my Iguanodon, and tamed him on up. I opted out of using a trap because I was lazy. Always use a trap, guys. Always use a trap. All you're doing is making life more difficult for yourself. Now that I had an RG to carry more stuff, I could go grab some metal. So on day 4, I went out early to get some, but quickly realized that I would need an Ankylosaurus. Didn't take me long before I found this level 80, and I tagged and bagged, you know what I'm saying? You catch them while I'm throwing. After returning home, I immediately went back to work on my soon-to-be glorious estate. The early hours of day 5 brought with it an Alpha Raptor, but that problem was quickly taken care of with my RG. I really wanted to be getting more progress done on my manor, but my metal hatchet just wasn't enough, which means it was Doedicurus time. And I kid you not, I looked all over for one of those stupid things before realizing it was literally 50 yards away from my base.
And there seems to be no sign of intelligent life anywhere.
Once he tamed up, I gave him a super creative name and spent the rest of the day collecting as much stone as I could carry. Now that I had a Doedicurus, the entirety of day 6 was spent working on my base. What can I say? Grand visions needed grand animals, and grand animals need a grand master with a grand wrinkly brain. You get the idea. Day 7 and I was still feeling very thirsty for progress. Harvesting wood with an axe wasn't cutting it anymore, so I wanted a beaver. After spending half the day looking and not finding anything, I returned home and collected the miscellaneous materials I would need to create a fabricator and generator. And just like that, I had violated building code in at least several different ways by having no walls, no ceiling, and yet a fully functioning electrical system. And if you guys tell on me, I swear I will turn into the Grinch and steal your Christmas. Day 8 marked my first official metal run on my Ankylosaurus. Once home, I began to spoil most of the meat I had so I could create narcotic. I was sort of at that point where I needed to start taming more creatures. And as I waited for it to spoil, I continued to work on my base. Day 9 and I was still working on my base. But finally things got interesting after I got bored and decided to go pay that desert biome a visit. Even though I had never played on this map before, I did do my research and there was a creature I wanted to tame. Aha, there's one right there. Not a bad level either. Once again, I opted to stay true to my style by not building a trap. But who needs traps when you have a ginormous brain like mine and can just use the terrain to your advantage? By staying low and keeping just out of sight, I managed to avoid all of his deadly machine gun-like barbs and had him knocked out in no time. My Velonosaur finished taming on day 10 and I named him Gunner, but that wasn't enough for me. I spent a bit of time messing around on Gunner and quickly realized that these guys were extremely overpowered. I spent some time looking for another decent level and eventually came across this level 120. I used the same taming method on top of this rock and it was an easy knockout. The journey back home would take up the rest of the day as it was a long, dangerous path. It was really big. Like your mom. Day 11, I compiled all the resources I had grinded for in the previous days to see if I could make an industrial forge, but found I was missing a couple things. I was actually already set for metal, I just needed to wait for it to smelt, so I headed out into the wasteland on my Velonosaur to farm corrupted nodules, which is basically just organic pollen. Upon returning, I loaded everything I had into the fabricator and finally had enough to make it, but unfortunately that left my metal supply very low, so I flew out with my Ankylosaurus to get a short metal run done. And whatever time I had left that day was used for continued construction. Day 12, I continued to be productive around the house until I decided I would go out and try and defend an element vein. Element veins are these weird little collections of spiky things out in the middle of the wasteland, and if you can defend them from 5 waves of corrupted creatures, you can harvest it for just straight up element. However, the particular element vein I had chosen was one of the more difficult ones, and I had to bail before it ended up costing me more than just my life. It's like one of those memes where there's Goku saying, "Hey, I see your depression is pretty strong. Let me fight it for you," and then ends up being on the floor 3 seconds later. Day 13, I was burning with shame for my performance on day 12, so I went out into the wastelands looking for something to redeem myself and came across a blue orbital drop. Orbital drops are like element veins in the fact that they have waves of creatures you have to defend them from and that they have difficulty levels. At this point, I had done enough research to know that blue drops were the easiest in terms of difficulty. The most difficult part about this I found was just finding the stragglers left behind so I could finish each wave. The loot wasn't too bad either. But as I was flying around on my RG, I realized that it was really slow, and I knew there was a faster creature I could try and tame called a Managarmer. Since Managarmers only spawn in the snowy prototype arc, I went looking around there, even though I had absolutely no know-how, nor did I have the materials to actually tame one. I just wanted to see one with my own eyes. Once my brains came back on day 14, I decided to go back and start preparing to tame a Managarmer. I actually didn't have a single clue as to what I was doing when it came to building the actual trap, but I figured I'd just look something up on YouTube. A lot of this day was just spent grinding out trank darts. Eventually, I began to make my way back to the snowy arc, but on my way I found this yellow drop, and long story short, no. You can't defend a yellow drop with just a Volanosaur. While I was there, I found this snowy owl that was a high level, and I thought it looked pretty cool, so I tried to knock it out, but after a bunch of shots, it ended up getting away from me. It made me sad. I didn't give up though. I continued to look for it into the morning of day 15, and actually found it already passed out on this rock. It was gonna be a good day, I could feel it. At this point, I had done my research and knew exactly how I was gonna trap my Managarmer. Didn't take me too long to find one, and what do you know? Look who paused the recording for lunch and didn't hit play when he got back. I swear, literally no one else has this problem. But not to worry, I will get to prove my Managarmer taming skills later because, well, karma. But that's all I'm gonna say for now. As I tested it out, I realized that this tame was gonna be a game changer. Now that I had myself a Managarmer, it was time to go get a gacha. Gachas are these sloth-looking creatures that walk around in the sunken forest that will eat basically anything you give them. It was an incredibly long process to tame, but all I had to do was just drop literally anything in front of it and it would eat it. The taming effectiveness did go down, so I'm sure there was a better way to do this, but honestly, I don't care. And besides, I now have an endless supply of black pearls. I also tamed a beaver while I was at it. I really needed one. After I got home, I took my beaver out on a massive wood and berry collecting run. There was still a lot of work that needed to be done on my base, so the next 3 days were dedicated entirely to construction. Guys, cue another one of those building montages I like to do in every video. Yeah, one of those. What? The mic isn't on? What do you mean? It is? Oh, it is still on. Motherfucker. Day 20, I began my search for a Giganotosaurus. I would need to start my army as soon as possible if I wanted to raise enough to do a substantial amount of damage to the King Titan. Also, remember when I said that there would be karma for forgetting to unpause the recording? At first it was exciting because I had accidentally just discovered the location of the snow cave, and for whatever reason I thought it would be a great idea to take just me and my Managarmer into the cave, and that did not end well. When I returned later to get my stuff, I guess the creatures that were there had been kited somewhere else because there was nothing, at least that I could see. But now I was Managarmerless, I had to get another one. So instead of looking for a Giga like I wanted to, I had to spend the rest of the day looking for another high-level Managarmer. I'm not really sure what the moral of the story here is, so kids, eat your vegetables. Yeah, that'll work. Day 21, and I was still on the hunt for a Managarmer. Eventually, I came across this level 145 male. I used the same trapping method as before, but for whatever reason, OBS decided that now would be a good time to start freezing the frames. It was really bizarre. The sound came through just fine, but my frames were approximately 1 frame a minute. That's alright though. I wasn't done with just the one Managarmer. I wanted to find it a mate. Looking for the female counterpart on day 23 was time-consuming and difficult, but eventually, I succeeded. The idea of the trapping method I was using was to keep it in between these 2 stone gates, and when it would try and escape, it would get stuck. Because it keeps trying to escape, its hunger went up, and by the time I knocked it out, it had no food left, so I was able to tame her up in no time. I made a pit stop at home very fast to drop off my important loot before heading back out to level up my new friend. Lily and I managed to defend an entire element vein by ourselves on day 23. Let's just say that the harvest was bountiful. I had no idea that much element could be farmed from this map. I should take notes in case I ever want to play PvP. We paid the Desert Ark another visit, where I found another Volanosaur with a level that I liked. So I bagged him. Turns out that it was a female, so now I could begin breeding my Volanosaurs, which I did when I got home. Day 24, and I also gave my Managarmers permission to fool around. I vowed to myself that I would never have to tame another one ever again. The rest of the day I just spent time gathering extra materials while I waited for my babies to grow. I needed to get more work done sooner, because remember, I still needed to find some Gigas to start an army. I've done my research. I know Gigas take forever to grow up, and I'm almost a quarter of the way to my time limit. I realized on day 25 that if I wanted to be raising a lot of babies, I would need a lot of room, and a lot of room would require a lot of safety. I then began laying the foundation for a big wall that would give me a nice enclosure to safely raise my children in. It would take some work, but I preferred the grind to dead babies. Despite my ambitions, I made sure to save some time to give my children some love. Didn't want them growing up in a broken home. You know the drill, making sure they're getting plenty of sunlight and grass to touch so that they don't end up making a 4chan account when they're 15. It was mostly the same deal on day 26, although something notable that happened is that my Managarmers had triplets. That was huge. With all the stone structures I was trying to make, I noticed I was always short on thatch. So I looked up the best creatures for getting thatch in this map and, well, I saw Megalosaurus. I knew those were close, so I went looking for one. The best one I could find that was close by was still a terrible level, but honestly I didn't care. He was just there for harvesting goods. Day 27, I finished my wall, and after waiting around nearly all day for the babies to grow, I got bored and wanted to have another adventure, so I went looking for a Giga. Nothing else really eventful happened after that, just me looking for a Giga unsuccessfully. My hunt for a good Giga continued into day 28, and I ended up finding this really cool skeleton skin Giganotosaurus, which I ended up killing anyway. Gotta love those Halloween skins. I tried to be a bit more thorough in my search this time and actually ended up finding this level 135 Giga in the mountains over by the Snowy Ark. I didn't have any of the things I needed to tame it with, so I had to run back home and get them. I didn't think I'd find something this soon. As a matter of fact, I was hardly prepared at all, but I would get this Giga. I was determined. The fate of the entire Earth depended on it. Or something like that. I don't know. I didn't read the lore. I finished preparing everything I needed on day 29 and set off to tame the beast.
Minutes later. 8 hours later. "16 paranoia-filled days later."
Day 30, I set my new Giga on aggressive so he could get some levels and began to lead him home. Even though it took half the day, I returned home triumphantly knowing I was halfway there to being eligible for a Giganotosaurus army. Later, I went back into the wasteland to look around for stuff to do and I found a blue drop. I didn't really expect much from the loot, but I ended up getting this Ascendant crossbow. Day 31, I decided that I wanted to tame a gas bags, which is like a big bloated bug-like creature that carries your stuff for you. It wasn't too long afterward when I realized that I had absolutely no idea how to tame one of these things, nor did I have the resources to do it, so it would have to wait for another time. The rest of the day was spent defending yet another element vein. What can I say? This world seems to have forgotten what capitalism is, and I'm here to remind them. Day 32 would prove to be very difficult and frustrating for my mental health. I had gathered and crafted all the components I would need for a good gas bags trap and set out to go find a high level. Once again, I was super fortunate and found this level 135. I had the trap all set up and ready for him to go, shot him in the face, had him follow me in, and He flew away. Of course he had to fly away. And I kid you not, I spent the entire rest of that day chasing him down and trying to shoot him out of the sky. Not a fun experience. Should not have worked. Then somehow after 40 minutes of playing cat and mouse, I managed to shoot him down from the skies. And I swear, if this tame ended up not being worth it in the end, I would find somewhere where I can kiss the ground at high velocity, if you catch my drift. Day 33 was also not so fun. I set up some wooden spike traps around my sleeping gas bags, but these corrupted creatures kept spawning and attacking it. First you had to damage my mental health, and now you're damaging my taming effectiveness? That's cold, man. That's cold. I managed to keep him alive until he tamed, fortunately, and took him home. I didn't stay there, I immediately geared up to go on my first ever big metal run with him. I got distracted by a blue drop though, so I started defending that instead. I finished defending that blue drop on day 34 and spent the rest of the day getting as much metal as my gas bag could hold. And let me tell you, that tame was definitely worth it. This guy could hold so much stuff. He had like a weight reduction on everything. And those of you who already know are probably watching me discover this like, yeah. While I waited for all that metal to smelt on day 35, I explored what was apparently dubbed the Forbidden Zone. I know why it's called Forbidden now, I definitely noped the heck out of there. During my adventure, however, I did spot this level 150 female Giga, exactly what I needed to start my Giganotosaurus army, so I wasted no time getting home and immediately began preparations. Day 36, I trapped and knocked out the Giga, easy peasy. I was a little bit nervous after I knocked it out though, since the game decided to throw a meteor shower at me while it tamed. Turns out I'm meteor proof because nothing hit us. I took my new Giga home and began the process of, well, yeah, you know what I'm talking about.
This is gonna be cool.
Day 37, I paid the desert cave a visit and delivered some of the tributes to the terminal. It wasn't enough, but it was a start. The rest of the day was spent collecting various resources. I also realized that I would need a Eutyrannus for the snow cave because of the Purlovias. Recalling the pain and suffering the Purlovias caused me the last time, I deemed having a Eutyrannus necessary. Day 38 would go down in history as being the day my first Giganotosaurus egg hatched. I spent quite some time collecting miscellaneous resources and building trap components for a Eutyrannus before actually heading out to look for him. I must have used up all of my good luck looking for Gigas because on day 39, as I looked for a Eutyrannus, everything was a terrible level. I decided to leave and come back later after looking for some time, so I went to the Forbidden Zone to try and get some fire talons to summon the Desert Titan. This is where things got a bit rough though, because I made the brilliant decision to get off of my mana garmer in order to access an item cache where there would be a fire talon and got promptly murdered. I'm talking true crime levels of brutality. It was terrible. I returned to the point of death on one of my other mana garmers. Because all the other corrupted creatures were still battling the first mana garmer, I was able to grab my stuff safely, but I lost him in the process. Despite that, the day actually ended on a good note because I hatched another Giga. The grand majority of day 40 was used to continue my search for a Yuti, but I still couldn't find anything good. I experienced yet another tragedy after I gave up and came home only to find one of my baby Giganotosauruses had died because I was a bad father and didn't feed him. Please don't call Child Protective Services on me. I'll be better, I swear. Day 41, I was back looking for a Eutyrannus and still couldn't find anything. While I was in that neck of the woods, I went into the desert cave to check what I needed to summon the Desert Titan. After that, I went home to raise up my babies, then went back out to find some Sarcos so I could get their skins to summon the Desert Titan. Obviously, I wasn't ready to fight it yet, I just wanted to have all the tributes ready beforehand. While I was out killing Sarcos, I got jump scared and turned into human chili by this Megalosaurus. During all the commotion, my mana garmer ran off somewhere, and to this day I have no idea where he is. I wasn't able to find him when I came back to reclaim my stuff. That's 2 lost mana garmers in the span of 3 days. Nice. Nice. Day 42, I killed as many Sarcos as I could find, which was difficult because they don't spawn that often. I needed their skins though, so I kept at it. Even while I was on my murderous rampage, I made periodic trips back home to make sure my babies were growing up properly. Day 43, I devised a plan for getting fire talons that was way more safe. All I had to do was aggro them and then fly up to the top of this rock, out of reach of anything else. Once they approached me with those hungry eyes, I froze them to death. Easy as that. I went back home to take care of my children later that day before heading back to the desert cave to deliver what tributes I had collected so far to the terminal. Day 44, luck was on my side again. That morning was spent just raising my babies and setting up an industrial cooker to give myself some heals. Towards the end of the day, I went looking for a Yuti again, And finally luck favored me. I found this level 125. I had my trap all ready to go early in the morning of day 45. From there, knocking him out and taming him was a piece of cake. I returned home in high spirits, only to find that I had finished raising one of my gigas. It was the Thanksgiving event, so I found a turkey wandering around outside my base, and so I picked a fight with it. And why were these things so overpowered? Oh yeah, because it's a super turkey. Oh, because of course. Why didn't I think of that? The rest of the day was spent taking my new Yudi, who I named Fuzzy Wuzzy, and my fully grown Giga child out into the wasteland so I could get the two of them a bunch of levels. Overall, just a really good day. I could finally leave my inner demons in the past. Nah, just kidding. They're always there. I continued to stay out in the wasteland with my pals for most of day 46. I did return as per usual to take care of the children. Later I went out to look for Therazinos so I could kill them for their claws. I needed them to summon the Ice Titan, but while I was out I found this high level Rex and thought, you know what, why not? So basically on a whim I tamed him, no trap, no nothing. Rexes are super slow though, so it really wasn't that hard. Day 47, I found and defended another element vein, only to betray its trust moments later through my heinous acts of capitalism. When I came home from the long day's work, I gave some attention to my children before crafting a huge amount of saddles. The funny part is that I would still need to make more Giganotosaurus saddles later, but we'll get to that. Day 48, I wanted to level up some of my dudes, so I went ahead and found an element vein, and this ended up being one of the more difficult ones. However, everything's easier when you have a Rex, a Utyrannus, and 2 Gigas with you, and we made quick work of any creature that tried to come close. Does this count as deforestation? I don't know. I don't care. Then I went home and played Nanny for the rest of the day. Just accept that I'll be doing that every day until I beat the map. I almost did exactly the same thing on day 49. I defended an easier element vein, I raised my babies, and I killed Therazinos. Day 50, I actually defended 2 drops. The first was a blue drop, nice small animals, nice and easy, no big deal. The second was actually a yellow drop, but it wasn't a big deal because I had some Gigas with me in cryopods and they made the entire fight trivial. A word for the wise, if you're making a Giganotosaurus army, make sure you pour every level into their melee because any level anywhere else isn't gonna do you much good. Like the government. As anyone could have guessed, the loot wasn't bad at all. There was a notable increase in quality from that of a blue drop. Day 51 was a bust. An interesting bust. So story time. I had my roommate in the room and I was giving him the tour of the map, trying to show him how cool Extinction was and how big of a nerd I am. Well, I was looking away from the screen when I was heading in a direction with my mana Garmer and this happened. My first instinct was just to give it up and just let it go, but not this time. I wasn't gonna give up. I noticed that if you cross the boundary, you don't immediately die. It just starts taking health gradually more and more. I thought the farther you moved in, the more damage it would take, but it turns out the faster you move, the more damage you take. Or at least I think so. I'm not sure, because I was able to do this after a few attempts. I think I deserve a like on this video and a subscribe for that. What do you think?
Why you booing me? I'm right.
Day 52 was wild. Completely out of nowhere, I decided, hey, let's go to the ice cave and summon the Ice Titan. I had 5 fully grown Gigas at this time, and I figured that would be more than enough since all the YouTube tutorials on killing the Ice Titan I had seen only used 2 or 3. And now that I had a Utyrannus and Gigas, the ice cave became trivial. And before I knew it, I was fighting the Ice Titan. Well, that sorta happened. But on day 53, I rejoiced in that victory by starting to defend my very first purple drop, although I missed one very important detail that cost me a giga. It's not just 5 waves you have to defend, it's a little more than that, but then you have to manually stop the defense, and then clear out the wave that you finished on. Because of my over-preparation, I got to wave 16, which gave me some decent loot, but I am never doing that again. Maybe. Day 54 was mostly spent organizing. It really needed to be done, especially since I was starting to forget where I was leaving things. Towards the end of the day, I decided that I would reward my efforts by loading all the materials I would need to make a tech replicator onto my gas bags. It was a small hop, skip, and a jump over to the Desert Cave terminal where I crafted it. I arrived home with my new toy on day 55 and placed it on top of my house. But now it was time for another large metal and crystal run because that tech replicator had picked me dry. Late into the afternoon on day 56, I finally felt satisfied with the amount of metal and crystal I had collected, so I headed back home. Using my new collection of resources, I built my very first mech.
The animatronic characters here do get a bit quirky.
This thing was super cool. Maybe I'd test it out on a Titan soon. Wow. After that, I went back to the desert cave and farmed a bunch of organic polymer from the mantises. For day 57, I finally had enough bravery in my veins to take on the Desert Titan after some research. According to some of the videos I had seen on YouTube, I could get away with killing it with only my mana armor by dashing through it multiple times. I opted to go that route since it seemed easy and I felt lazy.
Oh my god, bro.
Oh, hell no, man.
No, bro, I don't got time for this. I quickly ran home, cryoed my mech, and then came back to the battlefield where the real fight began. That was the easiest boss ever. I'm not even gonna lie, I even started eating M&Ms in the middle of the fight because all I had to do was move and shoot. Now that I knew my mech was overpowered, on day 58 I prepared to fight the Forest Titan. I figured that with the combined power of my mech and the Gigas, I should be able to kill him easy. All I needed to do was gather the last few corrupted hearts I needed to summon him, and then it was his turn for a spanking. Now my confidence was full to the brim, so on day 59 I decided I would try to tame the Forest Titan. I still had enough tributes to summon him a second time, so why not? might as well try. To tame him, basically you just have to shoot those 2 corrupted nodules on his shoulders. Once you destroy both of them, one will appear under his chin. Once you destroy that one, he'll pass out. All you have to do after that is walk up to him, slap him in the face, he'll wake up, and you have a new colossal friend. On day 60, I realized I couldn't cryopod this guy. I would have to walk him home, and that's what I spent most of the day doing. Once I got home though, I raised some more baby gigas before going out and farming corrupted hearts so I could later tame the Ice Titan. Not much happened on day 61. I just defended a yellow drop and then went home and raised my kids. Day 62, I defended a blue drop and, well, raised more kids. It was so tedious, but I had to make sure that they were getting raised right. Needed to make sure they got their food, their sunlight, the grass to touch, like I said earlier. I needed to fight the King Titan with battled hardened gigas, not a bunch of dream stands.
And when they ask me how
No. Wait.
On day 63, I learned that I have a rail module cannon thingy for my mech. It was pretty cool. I wanted to make it, so I made it. And the rest of the day was spent raising my kids. How exciting! Day 64, I went out and collected the remaining amount of corrupted hearts I would need to summon the Ice Titan again. When I came back, it was all preparation to make sure I was ready to tame the thing. It looked a lot harder than the Forest Titan. As I ventured through the ice cave again on day 65, something unbelievable happened. Remember when I lost Booger from day 20? Turns out he wasn't dead, so I still had him in armor. I cryoed him and then carried on. Taming the Ice Titan this time around seemed to go a lot smoother than the Forest Titan. I'm not sure what it was. I think it was because I felt like I was hitting the nodules more than I was hitting the actual Titan this time around. Eventually, I was able to knock him out too, and now I had 2 colossal friends. On day 66, I spent over 2/3 of the day trying to figure out how to walk the Forest Titan up to the King Titan arena. And that's when I learned I could just upload them to the terminal and get them there. I did not feel very smart. After that, I just went back, farmed some hearts, and raised more kids. And I'll have all of you know that at this point, the days start becoming very repetitive, as I had entered the final stage of preparation to fight the King Titan. Over the next 3 days, I would be doing the same 3 things: raising my kids, taking my fully grown, fully leveled gigas to the King Titan arena, and collecting more meat and corrupted hearts. I would need more meat to raise more kids, you know. On day 70, I took a small vacation from the kids and went to defend an element vein. For whatever reason, this time around, they were hiding from me, so it took me longer to complete. I wasn't actually finished with it until day 71. Hey, did someone say capitalism? Sorry, I couldn't resist. Later, it was time for the desert cave again, and this time around, I needed to kill giant snakes. I still needed more of their venom for the King Titan fight, and by the end of the day, I finally had every tribute I needed to summon him. Now I just needed everything I needed to fight him. Day 72, I found another element vein, which was super helpful because I had been burning a lot of element with my constant use of my tech suit. And then I returned once again home to raise my children. Oh my gosh, so needy, bro. Day 73, I went out and found this purple drop and decided it would be a good opportunity to level up some of my new gigas. I was mentally prepared this time, though. I would end it on wave 8 rather than letting it go to wave 16. And yet, somehow, I still lost a giga. Sometimes this game just doesn't want you to have nice things, but that's alright, because I still have 33 more gigas at home. Day 74, I continued to expand my giga army. At this point, I was feeling a little overwhelmed in terms of having enough meat for everyone, so I went out into the wasteland and spent some time getting as much as I could carry. Later on, I was feeling a bit bored, but decided to make myself useful anyways by going and replenishing my metal supply, which had been slowly dwindling thanks to my increased production of gigasettles. I finished that metal run on day 75 and began to move more of my gigas to the King Titan arena. And I was finally approaching the end of the game. All I had to do now was grow my giga army. For the canonical sake of the Earth, it was now do or die. Day 82, I finally took a break from the monotony and went to go defend a blue drop. I didn't really have any good reason to come defend it, nor did I have a need for any of the stuff that came out of it, so I just left like 90% of it behind. Meanwhile, at home, I was done with my egg hatching and was raising my last batch of gigas. It would take a couple days, but I was so close. Day 83 was almost an exact copy of the one before it, except this time I was defending an element vein, and I actually needed it. I wanted to take as much element as I could to the final fight. Even though I planned on riding the Ice Titan, I would bring my mech as a backup just in case. Hopefully I wouldn't have to reach that point, but you can't be too careful. You can't ever be too careful. I still remember the Rockwell boss fight from my Aberration video, and even though I thought I had over-prepared for it, I ended up having just enough. So this time, I was trying to go above and beyond, even if it was just the Gamma King Titan. Day 84, I finished raising the last Giga, and I made a point to say goodbye to my favorite animals and my house. I had spent a good amount of time building up to where I am now. Took a moment to take it all in, appreciate what I've done. I hopped on over to the King Titan Arena where I leveled up my last Giga, and well, it was finally time. The entire planet depended on it, so you know, no pressure. Oh my gosh, I'm so scared. Oh man, I feel like I'm gonna do well, but I'm still really scared. This could go so wrong. Get him! Get him! Oh, got him! We totally have him! Yes! Let's go! Oh my god! Oh my god! What were half of those? Oh my god! He's dead!
Each one carries with it the seeds of new life.
the world. Once they do, all that light will be unleashed. From there, it will spread, grow, and thrive. And this planet, our home, will bloom once more. As for the rest of the infection, well, the Arcs can take it from here. In time, they'll purge every last bit of element from the soil. But make no mistake, this is all thanks to you. I'm just